to give the purpose of this event, of us gathering today, but let me first explain what D2 Strong is. D2 Strong is just a group of community members that come together and meet monthly, talk about things that's going on in the community, and it's an organization, a group that we want everyone in this room to be a part of. At the end of this event, Pastor Jones will come and give you more information about D2 Strong, but in the name, D2 Strong, it's not just about District 2, but that's where we're starting at. And we want to make D2 strong, make Precinct 4 strong, make District 120 strong, make NAACP stronger, and everybody else where African Americans are represented stronger and stronger and stronger. With that being said, that's our purpose of this event. As you read the title, the African American Leadership Accountability Summit. For some people, the word accountability may be a bad word, but accountability should be the word for all of us. When we elect our leaders, when we appoint our leaders, there has to be a level of accountability. It starts with being able to ask them the difficult questions and holding them accountable for what they respond to those questions. So this is going to be the first event of many that we're going to have the opportunity to engage our leaders on a personal level and ask them those questions that need to be answered. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Joy McGee to come up. She's right behind me, and she's going to give an introduction of our moderators and our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyrone. A wonderful, beautiful evening to you, wonderful family. I'm so glad to see you here. We're all concerned about our community. We all work together. Love to serve in the trenches with you. And I'm so glad to have the privilege this evening of introducing our panelists and our moderators. Our first panelist, Paula Gold Williams, is the president and CEO of CPS Energy. She leads more than 3,000 team members with the vision. She's not coming. Okay, all right. Well, Miss Tuesday Night is here. She was recently named the president and CEO of SAGE, San Antonio Growth on the East Side, and has 15 years of nonprofit experience working for companies such as FedEx, the YMCA, and most recently with the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. She has developed into a dynamic, forward-thinking leader. She holds her BA from Tennessee State University and an MBA from Texas A&M International. She's fluent in Spanish, and her main responsibilities are to advocate for the citizens and businesses of the East Side and champion small business development. Barbara Gervin Hawkins. She is the state representative for Texas 120th House District, which includes parts of San Antonio and Commerce, encompasses Windcrest and Turton. A leader in her community since 1981, she is a passionate educator, businesswoman, and brings these skills with her to the Texas House. Before she was elected to the Texas House, she served as zoning commissioner. She served on numerous boards.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Who's your contact person here?
What happened? For what?
No, we just want to see if this is working, so we can have a third mic.
Yeah, how long? She's right there, Mrs. Johnson, so right there.
The restrooms are down here?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, how you doing? Tyrone doing. This mic was up there. Are we able to use this mic?
If it's working, I don't know nothing about it, but go ahead. Our sound guy's not here tonight, he had to work.
And his PhD in leadership studies from Our Lady of Lake University. The NAACP is in the DNA of Gregory Hudspeth, as his father, Charles Hudspeth Jr., served as the president of NAACP in the 1970s and 80s. Dr. Hudspeth is the immediate past chair of the Housing Committee, and in November 2018, he was elected as our president of our local branch of NAACP. Tommy Calvert Jr. was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. He earned his bachelor's degree from Tufts University. He was elected the Bexar County Precinct 4 Commissioner in 2015. He is one of 5 chief executives of county government. He is the youngest and first African American county commissioner in Bexar County. He represents over 500,000 residents in Precinct 4, and he has distinguished himself by building and developing areas in the county that have been historically neglected, ushering a rebirth for Precinct 4 residents. Christopher Steele, he's a division fire chief with the San Antonio Fire Department and currently serves as the president of the San Antonio Professional Firefighters Association. He has been on the fire department for 33 years and rose to the rank of chief quickly. He has been a chief since the year 2000 and president since the year 2004. He has served most of his career on the east side of San Antonio. He is a lifelong resident of City Council District 2 and went to elementary, middle school, and high school on the northeast side. Wasim Ali, class of 1994, Sam Houston High School. Houston Tillotson, class of 2000, president and CEO of the publishing company, the parent company of the San Antonio Observer, San Antonio Register, The Times, Entertainment Weekly, Inquirer, El Stars News, and the Waco Messenger. Mayor Mary Dennis, one of our moderators, has received numerous awards, but her most noteworthy accomplishment is being chosen to serve as the mayor for the city of Live Oak in the June 12, 2010 runoff. She is the first African American to serve in this capacity. She is known as Little Mary, the daughter of Mary Wyatt. She is who was the former owner of Flowers by Mary. She is a Sam Houston High School graduate. She is passionate about the education and safety of our children, and she is a great role model to us all. Our next moderator, Pastor Michael Steve Brown. He is the proud pastor of the True Vision Church in San Antonio. He has led the church now into its 14th year, and it continues to grow, and they now have 2 campuses. He pastors the True Vision Church with his wife by his side. He is in his 10th year of marriage to the former Joy Denise Cyrus of Charleston, West Virginia. They have been blessed with 2 children, Michael and Angelo. He serves faithfully as the Baptist Minister Union of San Antonio, and the vicinity is the active dean of the Citywide Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited and so privileged to have a fine panel and esteemed moderators. Please welcome our panel and moderators for the African American Leadership Accountability Summit.
Good evening. Let's try that one more time. Good evening. Good to see you all who are here today for this, what I believe was what I come to know the first summit of this conference, but one of many to come as it relates to African American leadership in the city, D2, and beyond. I'm glad we here to serve as one of your moderators with the lovely little Mary Dennis. Our great man down there in my hope. See, I'm not going to waste time. Y'all know we invited the preachers to do this, and I'm not to say.
So that's kind of how it goes. And the scope of authority is that we make rules and regulations. I'm proud to serve as your state rep, and hopefully we can get into some of that conversation. Thank you.
Did it start? Okay. We have a timer back here. Thank you again, Representative and Wasim, for saying exactly what we are all thinking. Thank you for being here. We're appreciative of being here as well, and I'm appreciative of being on this panel, so thank you for that. My name is Tuesday Knight. I'm the president and CEO of SAGE, San Antonio for Growth on the East Side. I've been in the position since December. It's interesting going from my position before. I was at the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, where we focused on business and living conditions and all of that on the entire part of San Antonio. Now I focus on just the east side. Specifically, our organization focuses on just 22 miles, so it's a little deceiving saying San Antonio for growth on the east side because it's only 22 square miles, but we and what's happening with the city of San Antonio directly on the east side. And our next one that we have coming up on Saturday is regarding housing. We all know that affordable housing is an issue, and so that's our next focus area. Thank you again for having me.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I feel honored to be amongst these ladies and gentlemen here, but especially feel honored to be amongst the people that I've dedicated my life to serving, which is the constituents and citizens of San Antonio. And so I am Christopher Steele. I'm with the San Antonio Fire Department, and I have been in this community of District 2 most of my career. I served as a captain right down from St. Phillips. I was a lieutenant right outside of Fort Sam. You know, District 2 is near and dear to my heart, but this is about the African American leadership and things related to that. And so I've been a chief since the year 2000, which is 19 years. I used to run the EMS division for the city of San Antonio. And I've also been president and elected president for 15 years now. My constituency is people, it's citizens, even the people who are tourists that come here. My issues are safety. So we can talk about a lot of other things, but if you're not safe in this city, then nothing else counts and nothing else matters. And my other issue is voting, because voting has more power than the dollar. So that's what you'll hear me always focusing on, and that's within the scope of our organization as the San Antonio Professional Firefighters Association and what we do. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing all of this.
Thank you. My name is Gregory Hudspeth, and I am the president of the San Antonio branch NAACP. And we are a membership organization, and that is we function off of memberships, and we are countywide. So, you know, I didn't bring any applications with me tonight, but if you're not a member of the NAACP, we want to take care of that. We invite you to join us. We are a civil rights advocacy group. So, stating that we're not a political party, we do not engage in political endorsements, we are we're not an educational group. However, we do educate the folks. And we don't tell people how to vote, but we insist and we provide information so that individuals can make independent decisions and vote in their best interests. And so we will continue to do that with regards to spreading the information and trying to get individuals active in our community. As I said, our community is countywide. I noticed that there are several members of our executive committee that are in the room tonight. I didn't expect to see them here, but I have about 15 seconds left, and I want to ask those members who are on the executive board, executive committee, of the San Antonio branch NAACP, if you will please stand. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I appreciate each of you being here tonight also. Thank you.
It's great to see everyone, and thank you for the honor of being your servant at Bexar County. I am a county commissioner for Precinct 4. We are like local governors. We implement the laws of the Texas legislature locally. We oversee homeland security, the system of justice. We oversee the system of health care, mental health care, flood control, We oversee infrastructure primarily in areas that are not in a city, unincorporated Bexar County. For those individuals, I am their mayor. I oversee over 500,000, about 530,000 constituents, stretching from IH-10 west at Hildebrand, near Temple Bethel and Beacon Hill, Alta Vista area, all of downtown except about 5% of it, past King William, past Elmendorf on 37 as if you're going to the Eagle Ford Shale. All the east down 10 as if you're going to Houston, and all the northeast up 35 as if you're going to Austin. And so we oversee everything from elections and marriages, divorce, emergency services districts with fire departments. There's a lot of things that it covers, but I'm really excited to get into the dialogue. Thank you.
Okay. Let me give you a simple format of what we're doing, and let me correct something real quick. My bio, I don't know where y'all got it from. That's really old. I've been at True Vision Church about 22 years, and I certainly have to respect my marriage and say I've been married at least that long. I don't want my wife to hear that. Anyway, Mayor Dennis and I understand that you're not here to hear our voices necessarily. You're here to hear from the panel, and we're also here to hear from you. So here's how the format is going to go. For about an hour, we'll have questions, pre-scripted questions that were given to us that we'll ask these moderators, and they will share before us with you. And then after that, we'll have about 30 or so minutes from questions from the audience back to them. Our job is to moderate and keep us moving, and hopefully keep us fair and on time and that kind of thing. So I'm going to ask Mayor Dennis to come, and she's going to share the first few questions with us now. Oh, please, for respect of what we're doing, silence your phones. I heard at least 2 go off already. In a setting like this, we assume that you would do that. So please, if you have not, silence your phones so we can have a good dialogue back and forth.
Thank you, Pastor Brown, and good evening, everyone. We certainly are very blessed to have a great panel here with us today, so we should be able to get a lot of good conversation and questions and answers done this evening. The panelists were given these questions, so I will just kind of put this first one out here, which has to do with community engagement. And so I know not each panelist will be able to answer each question, but where you feel that you could contribute to the conversation, please feel free to do so. As far as community engagement is concerned, what does your office do in particular to engage the community? Emails, meetings, follow-up phone calls, and such. And the other question as part of that is, how do you think we as leaders can work together better to serve our community? So my question to you, to the panelists, is what does your office do to engage the community in efforts that you have or programs that you have, and how can we as leaders work together to be more effective in being making our community a better place? And you have 60 seconds, and we have a timer.
I think when it comes to community engagement, obviously being a newspaper, that's essentially what we do. Having an open door policy, having our ears to the streets, being cognizant of the concerns that face this community every single day is one of the main things that we look at in terms of engaging our community. I think it's important, again, for open dialogue. You know, a lot of times, you know, things these days have become so tribalized. You know, we've gotten away from objective truth. And I think sometimes when we get around people who just think like us and act like us and speak like us, we lose a different perspective on what it is that we try to get done. And our goal at the newspaper is to try to carry a different voice and a different perception from everybody. You know, I find it odd at times when we get certain criticisms and I offer, well, hey, why don't you put your perspective in the paper so that we have 2 different perspectives. Nobody ever takes me up on that. And I think that's important for community engagement, that we hear all sides from everybody. Thank you.
So, Mr. Wasim, did that mean you're going to stop being mean to me? Yeah, I know I got to plug that one in, okay?
That's between she and I.
So for me, engaging the community every way possible that I can. And so having meetings at my office, sending emails, making sure that my staff go to neighborhood association meetings and engage participation by myself, and if I'm not available, my staff. And to me, the way my office can partner with the community more and continue is to be that advocate where the community has some concerns. I'd love for my office to be used to resolve some of those things, and we have done that. There was a family that had some issues with the retirement center, with the teacher's retirement, and wasn't able to get benefits for their sister. It was, 90 days, we resolved it in 4 hours. There was a gentleman in jail we had to work with and get some things done. I go on and on a list of things that we've done, and we will continue to do that. So when we say that black leaders don't work together, time is an issue, schedules is an issue, status quo is an issue, and also hearing your voices, like tonight, of how we can continue to work together and how you help us and shepherd us to do it and make the time work for us. So we need you to help us understand the importance of continued dialoguing and talking together. Thank you. We're going this way.
Thank you. So my organization is only community engagement. It is specifically created so that we can provide the services that need to have happened. So as I mentioned, housing, as I mentioned, economic development, as I mentioned, workforce and education. We partner with all of those entities on the east side. We consider ourselves, and it's in our motto, is that we are a collective impact agency. We can't do the work that's happening. We don't build homes. We don't teach in schools, and we don't have economic development in our office, but we do. We have the opportunity for people in our community to come in and get grant support, office support. We have an accountant who is my CFO that you can come in and get assistance from. Our door is open for the community. We have a conference room so that people can come have meetings there, and we continuously work with those partners to make sure that that work is happening. So continuously with community engagement, that's what we continue to do. As I said, again, with the housing, that's affecting our community every single day. So anything community engagement is what we do.
So I'm assuming with this question, it's outside of the scope of when you're having your worst day of your life and you call 911, we are there and we're engaging the community. But outside of that, we have many and varied programs. You can just contact us. We install smoke detectors for free during the hot months of the summer. We give fans. We support most charities. We do the work there and then donate the money that's necessary for those charities. We get involved in school demonstrations and teaching kids stop, drop, and roll, things like that. If a senior has access issues, we'll build a ramp so that you can take a wheelchair in and out. All kinds of things that are benefiting the public. And so all you have to do, I would say call 911. Don't do that. But there's a non-emergency number, and we also have a number as well, or any firefighter that you see, or email, and we will respond, because the number one thing that we do is take care of the customer, and that is you.
Thank you. In the NAACP, we have approximately 17 committees. And so it's not what we do individually, it's what we do collectively. And those committees will serve to engage in many things, from dealing with housing issues, dealing with civil rights issues, dealing with legal rights issues, dealing with women's issues, etc. And so what we do is we ask folks to come in and meet with us and identify any challenges that they're having. And then we will attempt to aid them in addressing those challenges. Our theme for our national convention in Detroit, Michigan this summer was "Where we fight, we win." And the idea there is when we fight collectively, not when we fight among each other. And so one of the things we try to do is ensure that everyone's working together. We do not care who gets credit for it. Have no interest in getting credit for it. What we're interested in is the product at the end of the day. I would hasten to point out, we don't have any permanent friends, or we don't have any permanent enemies. We have permanent issues. And those permanent issues are civil rights issues and ensuring that there's equity, there's diversity, and that people are treated fairly. Other than that, we don't do anything.
So I personally do about 2,000 to 3,000 meetings a year, and have a very open door policy. It's difficult sometimes because some folks think the scope of my work is the size of a city council person, but my precinct is bigger than cities like Milwaukee, so it's more like a big city mayor. But I do my best to try and reach out and meet with almost everybody who makes a request. It may take a little bit, but we definitely try. And Dr. Bashar Ahmed, who's in the back, he is my Director of Neighborhood and Community Engagement, so we do go to neighborhood meetings. I consider the neighborhood associations really my boss because you are the experts in the community, and so when the neighborhood associations ask me to be there, groups like this ask me to be there, I am there if my schedule isn't occupied with something else. We do have apps that folks can access, of course. We have our phone number and our email on the website for the county. We do have boards that you can serve on within Bexar County, and those range from university health system to historical society. It's quite broad in terms of the amount of boards. So I'll leave it with that. So I have 10 seconds. Okay, I'll keep the mic.
Well, thank you so much. I applaud you all for actually answering the question, so thank you so much. We'll move now to social justice, and Pastor Brown's going to lead us into those questions.
Well, really, there's really just one question under this subject heading. We had two, but for the sake of time, we have chosen one that we thought would definitely have more weight than the other. So here it is. Within your office or your organization, are there policies in place to protect people of color as well as women? Within your office or organization, are there policies in place to protect people of color as well as women?
Absolutely. I'll start there. There are a number of policies that we've tried to implement. Everything from body cams for our law enforcement. That makes the visit that you have with law enforcement, they act better and we act better. So that's a very important thing. We've got the first body cams in the history of Bexar County instituted. I also have led the court along with Judge Rosie Gonzalez and a number of the members of the Bexar County Judiciary in carving out new funds for domestic violence. It has been sadly a huge stain on San Antonio and Bexar County to have the worst domestic violence and child abuse. And so we are moving forward new best practices in that arena. But I've also done things when folks call me about their family members in justice situations, like the two young girls who were at the Whataburger on FM 78 when a deputy sheriff arrested them because they didn't move fast enough. I ensured that they were out of jail. I paid personally for the expungement of their records because those two high schoolers wanted to be nurses and lawyer. And I didn't want, because a law enforcement officer had a bad day, for that to be a strike on their progress. So there are things that I do individually for the community when you call upon me, and sometimes we do it in the quiet, and people don't even know it, James Meyer. So there are many things. That we do for social justice. That's how I began my career in human rights.
We recently had an incident at River Center Mall where an African American was arrested for lottery. And when he was asked, he asked the police officer why was he being arrested, And the police officer informed him that he needed to move and get out of the building. And he said, well, I don't want to do that. So they placed him under arrest. But in placing him under arrest, the police officer began using the N-word. And he said, the reason you're being arrested is because you are a blank. And the real problem with you is the way you were raised. So I received a call from the chief of police, and he shared that information with us. And so we took our executive committee to the chief's office, and he talked about that incident and what occurred. The young man, the police officer was fired. He was terminated, and which is what he should have occurred. But what occurred here is that the San Antonio Police Department wanted to work with us to ensure that there was social justice. I've received a call from the sheriff's office today, and they indicated they want to meet with us on a monthly basis as well. I have a meeting scheduled with the police chief at UTSA. We are all aware of what occurred at UTSA with the student who put her foot on the desk and was told she had to she was removed by the police officer at UTSA. That faculty member, I've met with the president of the university as well as one of the vice presidents of the university, and that faculty member has been removed from the classroom. And I think I'm being told my time, but there are others. We'll come back.
You know, within the San Antonio Fire Department, we definitely have the policies to protect people of color and women. I think what we preach and what's in our culture is we don't care what color you are. We don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, tall or short, you have your papers or no papers. We're going to treat everybody with the utmost respect, 100% customer service. And so an example of that is when there was a trailer full of immigrants that they had stopped, and we have the responsibility first to make sure that they are medically cleared. And one of the things that we did is we delayed it. We wanted to make sure that they were fed. And so one of my battalion chiefs sent her crew to Whataburger. We bought everybody a meal and let them eat before they then moved on to their next destination. My focus usually is on jobs and recruitment. And so what we do is we go above and beyond to make sure that we have the right numbers in our classes, whether it's females or people of color, because giving someone an access to a job is probably the most important thing that any of us can do, and giving them access to a good job is very important for us. So we definitely focus on that.
So we don't necessarily focus on protection in the realm of fire or police, but I'm going to take it in the social justice way, Pastor, if you don't mind. That was part of the question. So we, as a supporter of the businesses, offer protection, meaning that we give grants to small businesses, medium-sized businesses on the east side in order to keep their business. So what does that mean? That means they can protect their family by providing for them. That means that they can have a thriving business, and that means that they can have something that's visible from the street that people want to walk into. So we don't necessarily protect in that realm, but we're protecting our community, and we're protecting our community one business at a time.
From the state point of view of protections, first we start in our office, and staff is well trained on expectations. Because I'll tell you, when you have a walk-up office, there's some special kind of people that walk in. But we want to make sure that we respect everybody, we hear out everybody, and we make sure we can address their issues, we will. Also, just having pure awareness of what's going on. I think the biggest part in terms of safety is the laws that we pass and what happens. And one thing I want my community to continue to remember is that when you set laws, you're laying out really the rules of engagement. And so for me, it's about how do we protect people of color, how we protect the women, but also our children and our seniors, our veterans, all of that. The veterans bills were under attack last session. We blocked those things. Always we talk about equal pay for equal work for women. We're looking at those things. We're looking at our mental health issues. So for me, the piece has to do with the written word, and that's how IBEST and my office work with the state of Texas to make sure we're not marginalized. You will see small quantities of marijuana cases drop. You will see people that have some challenges. And I don't know if y'all know, but a third of Texans have a record. A third of Texans have a record. So the state of Texas attempted to more or less police everything, and we can't. And when you put a record on a young person, it almost put a nail in their coffin of success. So my goal is to make sure our young people don't get caught up in an unjust system, and if you're in the system, you can be treated fairly. And that's where I believe I can help most.
Social justice as a newspaper, where do I begin?
Yeah.
I guess the main thing that we do is hold those accountable for the injustices that are perpetrated against us. Anybody who knows me privately knows I'm a lot more like Malcolm than I am like Martin, right? And again, if you talk to me privately, I got a whole bunch of ideas that are a lot like Malcolm as opposed to Martin. No disrespect to Dr. King. But for 25 years, and actually next year will be the 25-year anniversary of the San Antonio Observer. When my father first started this paper 25 years ago, he wanted to give a voice to the voiceless. And I think every week that we come out, we have to always keep that in mind. Every time there's a shooting of an unarmed black man, we're the first ones to speak about it. Right, and you wouldn't even understand the death threats and certain things that you get when you speak out against those in power for oppressing those who don't have a voice. And so when we talk about social justice, in essence, that's what the newspaper is for, to provide that voice for those who can't speak for themselves. So every week, again, we get up and we take criticism, but certain things that happen in our community that happen to us, it affects everybody, regardless of what your political affiliation is or what your ideologies are. Sometimes just being black is a handicap in itself. And so again, when it comes to social justice, every single week when you pick up a paper, there's probably something in there about how we are affected by the inequities of society. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to subjects like housing and then economic development. Under housing, here's a question for the panel. And answer it if it pertains to you, if we can save some time. If it doesn't really connect with what you do, just pass the mic. Habitat for Humanity has a strong presence on the west side of San Antonio. Appears to cater more toward Hispanics. So the question is, why isn't there a similar program on the east side of town where housing needs are similar? Is your office willing to bring a similar housing program to your district and ensure your constituents have access to it? I think that's a good one.
All right, housing.
Housing.
You know, to attract housing, we've got to be a little bit more open-minded and willing to accept people. So I need to tell y'all the words from what I call behind the door when you're hearing developers or people who want to possibly do things on the east side. Folks think the east side is hard to work with. They think the people are people of no rather than the people of welcoming. And as I share with them, really the people want to know. You know, if you're coming into a community, what's your plans? You know, if I've been in my home 50 years and now you want to build a $300,000 home next to me that's going to impact me, I need to know about that. And so we've got to, as a community, be more open, but more deliberate and engaged in the discussions around housing so we can get the things that we need. Y'all see all around this community, things are happening. And so we've got to get engaged a lot more in driving the train rather than keep watching the train go by and then get mad because who's on it. So for me, let's start having those discussions of our needs and let's start promoting those things that we want. The beauty of our life right now, y'all, is all things are possible. Everything we want to do, we can do. But we've got to put in place a desire, a drive, and realize it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it ain't happening overnight. And I know some of our young people are microwave type individuals that want to happen right away. But the reality is, if we work together, stay together, and that's why I love this summit tonight, that we can do all the things that we want to do. And guess what? Our young people deserve it. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make this community better than it is.
I don't need a lot of time on this. I just wanted to piggyback off of something that Representative Hawkins said. You know, there's definitely a lot of things happening in the community right now. We see it every single day. All we got to do is drive up and down the street, east or west, north or south, in District 2, and we see these things. And one of the things that we know that's happening is gentrification, right? Now, the thing about gentrification is there's a fine line between gentrification and progress, right? Gentrification happens, it's negative when the people who are in place are pushed out for financial reasons, right? And they don't have a part in the new things that are happening around them. It's called progress, and we're all included in that, right? And so we need to always make sure that we know the distinction between gentrification and progress. Again, progress happens when we're all included in that. We all benefit. Gentrification happens when we're just pushed down and we don't benefit from that. So it's important that we recognize what's actually happening and we stay engaged, as Representative Hawkins says, to make sure that we are part of a process that is happening anyway. The train is rolling. We just got to make sure we're on board with the train. Again, it's a fine line between gentrification and progress. We just want to be on the side of progress and not on the side of gentrification.
So you've heard me mention housing already several times. So housing is really, really important to us, and not specifically just because of what's being built and what's happening on the east side, but it's allowing people to age in place because that's what we want, right? So we had someone come into our office the other day that said, hey, the east side now is an opportunity zone. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But an opportunity zone allows for people who have capital gains to come in and purchase property and do whatever they want with it. So someone came in and said, hey, I want to purchase a piece of land on the east side and I want to build a senior center and I want to have 100 units for our seniors. I said, oh, that's great. That's exactly what we need. This would be perfect for housing. And I said, well, that'd be perfect. How are we going to get that information out? And she said, oh, no. It's not for people who live there now. It's for people to come in because of everybody that's wanting to move downtown and everybody wanting to come to the east side. So we have people that are coming in and wanting to build homes. You've dealt with her probably. But wanting to build homes, but not for us and not for the people that are living in this community. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to have that conversation. There is an organization called Cross Timbers that's very similar to Habitat, and they're building those homes. But Sage is trying to lead that discussion and trying to make sure that we're at the leading level of having that housing discussion. So we sit on a housing task force with the city. We are working with different cities like Indianapolis. I'm leaving for Atlanta next week to talk directly about housing. It is a big issue because what happens? Education leads to jobs. Jobs lead to homes. People have to have that. So in order to have that full cycle come around, they have to have homes that people can live in that are adequate, affordable, and appropriate.
I'll admit the question that how y'all are responding is more toward the second question, gentrification, but I'm still not hearing more about a similar plan like Habitat for Humanity or something like that.
So my vision for housing is to have a $100 million housing bond where half of that money could go towards owner-occupied rehab. If the county can give $100 million to rehab the AT&T Center, then why can't Mr. Jones or Mr. Rodriguez have a piece of the pie? And so in order to do that, I see a small business component because a lot of our businesses could grow their capacity. We could give Greenwood Remodeling $250,000 in contracts in year one of a 5-year plan. We could give them $500,000 in year two, $750,000 in year 3, $1 million year 4, and $1.5 million in rehab in year 5 of the program, and have a skilled trade construction trade program for jobs for young black men and others in the community to have good paying construction jobs. I'm also fighting to ensure that at the state level, the appraisals and the taxes change. What I believe is we've got to index areas like Dignity and Denver Heights, where we see appraisals skyrocketing, to inflation, or freeze them for existing property owners and pass it on to the next. I also have been fighting for the abatement policy at the county to change. Right now, we only incentivize the highest rents and highest mortgage. That is wrong. Folks who are working class, folks in the middle class, they also deserve to have additional housing developed. So I'm trying to attack it from all fronts. Today, I actually denied Habitat for Humanity $200,000 from the county and had the support of my court. And that is because the county judge, quite frankly, only wanted to do roof rehab in unincorporated CDBG zones, which is very narrow in terms of territory. I want to be able to have the entire home rehabilitated anywhere that I serve constituents. It shouldn't just be an unincorporated county. You pay county taxes in the city as well, and that's the kinds of things I'm fighting for.
Thank you. We appreciate the panel and their questions. What I like to do is we're going to have just 2 more. We have about 20 minutes left for this session, and then we'll go to the audience for questions, which I think is very, very important for this evening. So just quickly on the education question.
May I make a statement just for 10 seconds? I'll be very quick. On December the 14th, then the NAACP is having a program, and Ms. Hinton is sitting over here. So one of the things you can do is that you can call her. She answers our phone for us on Thursdays and Fridays, and we appreciate the work that she does. But what we're going to do is that we have a program on December the 14th in which we're going to address housing. And one of the things we try to do is get out of our silos, if you will, and bring other organizations together. So I want to have a conversation with SAGE so that we can hook arms together and make sure we're doing the same thing. But one of the things we're going to do on the 14th is that we want to tell individuals how, in their current property, how they can lower their taxes. And so we want to come in and we want to show how to do tax abatements or how to do exemptions, and protest your taxes, and how you can get homestead exemptions. And that's going to take place on the 14th, December the 14th, and everyone's invited to participate in that.
And now Tuesday, you want to say something else?
I'm sorry, one last thing that I wanted to say is that we're making a difference, everybody up here, by just sitting at the table.
Yes.
Having a brown face and speaking for this community means more than you know, because when they're talking about those housing initiatives and they're talking about what's going to happen at city council and at the county, if there is a brown face sitting there, we can speak for you.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, our question here is in the category of education, and the question is, the passing of HB 3 has added funding to public school districts, teachers and students across the board. Knowing in most cases education is absolutely the vehicle out of poverty, in your current role, what specifically are you doing to support education in our community? And just any of the panelists, please jump in.
I think on the macro level, the biggest thing I'm doing is educating people about where the jobs are going to be. And so I'm kind of proselytizing on the fact that people have to make a transition from the industrial economy to the information technology economy. That there are jobs in technology that our folks need to be able to take advantage of. So in my first 10 months in office, I was able to work with the Greater Chamber of Commerce to develop curriculum that was handed off to 15 of our 17 school districts in Bexar County in classes like CompTIA, Network Plus, Security Plus. Don't worry about what all those things stand for, but these are some of the basic computer classes that even a high schooler can take advantage of. I'm working to allocate $20,000 in the Bexar County budget so that the 5 largest high schools in each county commissioner's precinct can have a teacher who's certified to teach these things so that we don't hire people from out of town for these technology jobs, but our own pipeline of people can benefit from those kinds of jobs. And so I fight every day to try to awaken the community about where the jobs are, not in the future, they're here now. A third of every company now is in technology. And so we've got to make the transition for ourselves as well as for those coming behind us. And I also just voted and led the court for $155,000 to make community college universal, free for every citizen of Bexar County through a program called the Alamo Promise. That doesn't just mean community college towards a 4-year degree. It also means community college for certifications and skilled trades. So I'm very proud that when they talk about it in Washington, we're actually going to get it done in Bexar County.
The NAACP does not have any power, but what we do have is influence. And so our concern is to ensure that when we look at our public schools, when we look at our community colleges, that we have faculty members that are qualified to teach in those areas, that we have board members that reflect us. One correction in my bio, I am no longer a faculty member at St. Philip's College. I did that for 41 years. And so I decided it was time for me to retire. And as a matter of fact, at the last Alamo Community College board meeting, I made some comments to the board that were I still a faculty member there, I probably wouldn't be any longer. Because
sure of is that you just got to have a high school diploma or GED to get a great job with the fire department. And so we know that we'll train the people to do the job. And it's a lot of training and it's intensive. But having some kind of trade is very important. And one of the ways that we try to increase and impact the community is with our mentorship programs. And so you can have all of these great programs there, but a lot of times the young men and women don't know about them. They just read about it. It's not enough. We have to take one and teach one. And so we have created programs similar to ROTC for the fire service in high schools. So we've got Edison High School, Brandeis High School. We're starting to expand that, where when these young men and women graduate, they'll already have an EMT certification, they'll already have a fire certification, and then we can fast track them into fire service jobs throughout the state. And so for us, we really do believe that there's enough opportunity there, and if we just embrace it and actively recruit from our target audiences, we have a great impact.
So I'm going to be real quick because part of the question was specifically what you do to affect education. So we don't specifically affect education, but we support education. So when we know that those businesses are coming into the east side, we know that we need to talk with them and have those services come. So perfect example, Velocity TX, which is coming right up the street. They're expecting to have 700 jobs. Do we have the education for those jobs? They're hoping to hire on the east side. Do we have our students have the curriculum to be able to get those jobs? Because they're right out of high school. Their starting pay is going to be $30,000 to $50,000. Can our students get those jobs? So we are focusing on having those discussions. So St. Philip's, all of the schools, Sam Houston in our area on the east side, we're working with to make sure they have the curriculum. But directly affecting, I'm going to pass that to the rep because I know she has some hot stuff to talk about.
Well, education is my game. The reality is this, what I've done, I was a big supporter and helped get across the finish line HB3, which put anywhere from $400 to $1,000 more per student in each of the districts. So San Antonio ISD this coming year will receive $37 million more, not adding anything else, but because of the allotments that was made. Our retired teachers get the 13th check for the first time. And now I'm working on seeing how we can get a cost of living from henceforward, not just a one-time thing. We made the teacher retirement more stable, more actuarially sound, whereas before we were concerned about the longevity of it. Now it is sound. So we've done, through my office, a lot of things in education. Micro-credentialing. I passed a bill last session that allows an individual who have experience in their trade for at least 7 years can participate in a 200-hour training program and become a certified teacher, because I want to make sure that people who have the skills, the hands-on knowledge, can start teaching our kids, not those who are just what I call A students in college, but people who really know how to walk the walk and talk the talk and talk to our children. Also, I've been working on the bleeding control kit, making sure that all of our youngsters from 7th grade to 12th grade know how to stop someone from bleeding out. And so I put a lot of effort into education because I believe it is truly a vehicle out of poverty. And finally, along with a longer list, I can tell you what I've been doing. What's most important was I secured a grant from Toyota and worked with a certification program. We identified 13 African American men and put them through a alternative teacher certification, and 11 of them finished and became teachers. Guess what? These young brothers never thought they could be a teacher, because most of our community thinks if you're a teacher, you're a geek, or you're exceptionally smart. So now we've got 11 young brothers walking through these halls, and I plan to do that every year, fund the program. Think about it. Our athletes, they graduate. Only so many gonna go to college, and only so many gonna go to the pros. And there's a whole long line of others who don't know what to do, and no one's advising them. So when you bring them in and you talk about them becoming educators, an area that they never thought about, it changes the game. And so for me, education is everything, and I'm gonna continue to work in that capacity.
Thank you all very much. Very, very good conversation, dialogue there. Well, our last topic is economic development. It's something very dear to my heart, because I think that, and I know this, that if people are able to have a good income to take care of themselves and their families, a lot of these issues we would not be dealing with in the way that we are. So my question, the final question to the panelists is this: what initiatives, and I don't think I'm going to ask that question because I think you really have answered what you do that impacts the community, but this will be my question. Do you believe that there should be a local Black agenda that's specifically geared toward economic prosperity? And what role, if so, could you play in helping to make that a sustainable program?
Keep in mind, we only have about 6 more minutes for questions.
So maybe we'll just have one or two of you answer that question. Thank you.
It might be wishful thinking on my part, but I remember a day and looking around this room, I know that several of you probably remember this day too. I was a little boy when all this was going on, but I remember when the Black community was self-sufficient, right? We didn't have to go outside of our community to get our needs met. And so when we talk about a Black agenda, should there be a local Black agenda? I think we should just get back to where we started at, right? When they told us we couldn't go to school, what did we do? I graduated from Houston-Tillotson. We went and started our own schools, right? When they told us we couldn't go to doctors, well, what did we do? We started becoming doctors ourselves. When we couldn't get legal representation, well, we started becoming lawyers. I think that as a community, as a people, we've gotten so dependent on other people, and then we hold them accountable when they don't want to give us something that we can get on our own. So I honestly believe that if we just get back, at one point in time we were slaves. We didn't have anything, and we got a lot now, right? We still have a lot further to go, but I think that just becoming more self-sufficient and leaning on each other in our community a lot more, instead of looking for handouts from other people, we step up to the plate and we start taking care of home and when I look out in this room, I think everybody in here is family. And I think we should go back to start taking care of one another a little bit more than what we actually do. I'm sorry. I apologize. I started running off at the mouth.
Thank you. So Ms. Hawkins will end this question for us.
Right. The answer is yes, we need a Black agenda. And here is why. Focus. The key to success is focus, okay? And so we're not saying we exclude everybody else, or we're not saying be racist or prejudiced. We don't want to do those things we accuse others of doing. What a Black agenda means to me is that we're more deliberate and intentional in what we do. Like I said earlier, identifying cohorts of young people We've got these cybersecurity jobs coming. We got so many jobs coming in the community, y'all. It's just unbelievable. We got to get our young people ready. So for me, the main black agenda for us is how do we get our young people ready for these new jobs, all of these opportunities that are out there. We've got at least over the next 10 years, billions of dollars being spent in the city of San Antonio, the land of milk and honey. Are we ready, and are we preparing our young people to take advantage of it? So as we get into our discussion, one of the things I want us to leave here with tonight is the how. I think we all know what we need. The key is, how do we get there? How do we move the needle? How do we make sure people have information? How do we connect people to opportunities? We got many silos of excellence. Now we need a unity fest that's focusing around what African Americans need, which may be different from what others need. Thank you.
Okay. Listen, we are limited with microphones, and I think all of you who want to address the panel need to use the microphone so all of us can hear. I'm going to leave it here, so if you're going to address, if you could come around and come up this aisle here, and we'd appreciate it. Is there, sir? Oh, I've been reminded to tell you to make sure you ask a question. Sometimes we want to go around the world and the questions way at the end. Our time is limited, so please come with a question that we can address. Brother Myron. Ladies first.
Good evening to this wonderful panel. My question is for Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, would you please be willing to make sure that in the newspaper, The Observer, there is a plain version of what it means in a regular person's terms?
Yes, ma'am. Can I get you to state your name, please?
My name is Maria Stevenson Green, and I'm a life member of the San Antonio branch NAACP.
Okay, Ms. Green, that's an excellent question. I really appreciate you asking. Just so everybody knows, The Observer, or the publishing company, is just one of several businesses that we have as a family. I don't do the day-to-day operations of it. My publisher actually does, but that is definitely something that is of immense concern, I think, to a lot of people, especially when it comes to voting. So one thing that I'll tell everybody is, if things like that, we do have an open door policy. I will definitely bring that up to my wife, who is our publisher, and bring that to her attention. If you could take the extra step, if you don't mind, young lady, and just call our news office and bring that to her attention, and she will be more than happy to look into that, because that is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. And I think a lot of times, and just so we know, a lot of times when we put articles in the paper, I got to tell some of my writers, because they're very, very educated. A lot of them are a lot smarter than I am. But I got to tell them, dumb it down a little bit, because I don't even understand what you're saying. And I know a lot of people in the community may not understand what you're saying, but that is definitely an excellent question, and one that I will definitely bring back to the staff.
And if you please, would you acknowledge Mr. Gordon Benjamin? He and Ms. Richardson and some other people are having a workshop about the constitutional amendments, and I'd like for them to give the date, time, and place, because there are some other people in this room that will be going to vote in November, and we need to know what we're voting on. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So y'all can have a little more room. Let's do it from here.
Good evening to the members of the panel. I'd like to express my thanks and gratitude as a community activist and as a community member for your presence here tonight to emphasize how important it is for us to have a support your efforts 100%. Wherever you need us, information outlet, you know where to find me. None of these efforts will be of charge.
Is there a question in our future?
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to.
Okay.
As my name was said earlier, I wanted to acknowledge what we're doing. With
I know, but our time is limited, so let's make sure we.
I'll be brief, be good, and be gone.
I'm gonna cut you again if you go too far.
Would you support a community-oriented forum on civics for your constituents, seniors, neighborhoods, and high school students, so that voter education is emphasized and we have more participation in upcoming elections, the rest of 2019 and all of 2020. Would that be something you could support?
There was a unanimous yes on that one from everyone on the panel, I think.
I'm going to be very brief. For 40 years, I've been a community activist in this city for the East Side. Charles Williams knows, and Gary Houston knows, that this is the first time I've seen anything like it, where we have our black elected officials with our appointed officials coming together and saying we need an agenda.
Use the mic.
I'm sorry, y'all. I've been a little ill. But here's one thing I want to point out. I'm only sorry that Miss Jada Sullivan's not here, because the city needs its representation here too, and she's not. And my question relates to all of you and the city. There are 15 top employees in the city manager's office. There are 20 top officials in the police department. There are 30 top lawyers in the city attorney's office. And I'm sad to report, not even a coffee girl among them. Not one black person. Everybody loves Eric Walsh, the new city manager. But his engagement is over.
Brother Meyer, we need a question, sir.
And the question is, what will you do collectively to address Eric Walsh about the fact that we live in 2019, not 1948?
I'd like for that to be addressed.
The best way to address the areas of gaps we have is come together collectively. Like you said, James, this is the first time we've sat down at a table collectively and are having conversations. But it takes the community to put us in this spot. So don't say, y'all go do it, but be engaged yourself and have certain expectations. And as I said earlier, we can do anything we want to do, but we've got to work together. And we've got to be committed to do it. And we've got to focus on making it happen.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Langston Clark, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio in the College of Education. I've been here 4.5 years, and since my first year until now, there are only 2 young black professionals that I know that are still here that haven't moved. So my question is in what ways do you all propose that we onboard young black professionals so that they can gain the social capital necessary to fill some of these positions that people are complaining about? There's a lack of representation in some of the issues affecting black communities here in San Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Since I am still a young professional, at least for a little bit longer, and have a little bit of experience having started the NAACP branch at my university, at Tufts University, and been the political director of the Pan-African Alliance there, as well as on the Board of Trustees and a former teacher. One of the things that I think is important is let's work together to have a socially supportive group. I think we ought to have some mixers where young professionals, African American, can support each other, network with each other, and hopefully make them feel less isolated. I'd be happy to host and put up the money for the hors d'oeuvres and things of that nature. Okay, yeah. And so I think that's really important. It's just not to feel on an island when you're in San Antonio, and to know that there is a black community, that is a great community that you can connect with. And so I'd ask that the faith-based community connect with us and those young professionals and the civic organizations, because they do want those folks in, but sometimes when you get on that far northwest side, there's a bit of isolation from connecting with the density of it. And the other thing is, I think you have at the University of Texas at San Antonio, he happens to have gone to my university, and I've had a chance to build a relationship with Dr. Amy, the new president of UTSA. And I think he is a more progressive president than perhaps they've had in a while. And I think we have to challenge the community, the academic leadership at UTSA to make a special effort, whether it is prizes for innovation for professors who are of color, or whether it is retreats or just things that help them in their professional skill development to become better professors and incentivize their stay here in San Antonio. So there are many things I hope we can do together.
I concur. I've met with Dr. Anderson on your campus as well. We have a NAACP chapter on the UTSA campus, and a group of those students, 8 of them, are going to our state convention, and the San Antonio branch is sponsoring them to do that. In the San Antonio branch NAACP, we also have a young adults committee in which they're doing precisely what you suggested. Matter of fact, they're going to have a social, and I don't have it on my calendar, and maybe Tony can give me the date because I think it's at your place, is it not? Yes. And what's the date on that? Do you remember? He said, so he doesn't remember either. But what I will tell you is that if you give us a call, we will let you know. I'll find out by tomorrow what time it's going to take place. And we invite you to participate in that because we understand. I'm not young anymore, but when I was a young professor, I had this huge afro. That was some time ago.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Stephen Lucky. I have started a nonprofit organization called Gardopia Gardens. I have 2 questions, but I believe they're germane to each other, so hopefully it's not too much of a tangent. One, and I've brought this up before, I'm on sanantonio.gov/business/chambers of commerce, and there's a lady who has a sign next to her that says, "We are open for business." And I see the Alamo Asian American Chamber of Commerce, Alamo City Black Chamber of Commerce, Alamo Heights Chamber of Commerce, Castle Hills, Greater Burney, Greater New Braunfels, San Antonio, Leon Valley, North San Antonio Hispanic, San Antonio LGBT, San Antonio Women's, Shirts, South San Antonio, West San Antonio. Specific to region, I see North, South, and West. And so I asked myself, why is there not an East Side Chamber of Commerce? That's really a big one. And it says we're open for business, and I'm sure I've seen posts on social media and other places that says the East Side is open for business. But if the East Side is open for business, then why is not a Chamber of Commerce open for business as well? And I think that's really important. The second piece to that is that the East Side really encompasses I-35. And sort of as the professor said a little bit earlier, a lot of people leave. I've been trying to travel and see other cities, and most other cities have transportation along rail. And a lot of times I see posts that say, rail is not an option. It's not an option. We're not going to talk about it. And why are we not going to talk about it? And so if I-35 is on the east side and the northeast side, and young professionals who travel around the world and around the United States have access to this type of transportation, then what is keeping us here in the city when we can go to other cities who have better transportation options? Because we don't want to drive everywhere. I don't want to drive everywhere. Do y'all want to drive everywhere? And right? And so how can we advocate for better transportation, specifically rail from San Antonio to Austin, so that we don't have to drive? Because how many people could live in San Antonio and go to UT or go to Texas State?
I think we have the gist.
Thank you.
Rail is coming. The state is working on rail now, but remember when you talk about rail, you talk about a lot of land space, and there may be some eminent domain issues that come up. So even though, it's wonderful and we're going to move in that direction, we've got to look at the overall picture, and that is the taking of people's land that they may have had for hundreds of years, and that won't be easy. The other thing is the will of the people has to dictate what happens. And so when we look at trying to bring, I'll call it fast cars and fast moving trains, we've got to look at what has happened. In San Antonio, it has not been favorable. And so we've got to look at that. And then quickly I want to say I'm for engaging our young people, not just at UTSA, but also preachers. I need some of your young people that's in your churches. We need to do some mix and matching and stuff, and we need to create, some social events that our young people can participate in so we can keep them here and keep them active.
And I have to speak to this because I worked at the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce for 8 years, and so that really was a thing for me as well. All of the chambers that you mentioned, there are actually 21 chambers of commerce in San Antonio. We have 1.8 million people that live here. There is not a need for that. But if you look at the number of chambers of commerce, there's a black chamber and there's an Alamo City black chamber. So we have two. It might not specifically say East Side, but we do have two. We have been talking and trying to get some of that engagement and things happening with the chambers. We want to make sure all of that happens as well. So my organization, I know specifically with our board, are trying to figure out things that we can do and not necessarily creating a whole nother chamber of commerce, but enhancing the ones that we have.
Stephen, there were 3 elections that failed on rail. Part of it was the city leaders had bad plans. The last plan that failed, it failed because the rail line was not in the places where traffic congestion was. So it was really the special interest of the owner of the Pearl who wanted the route to run from the Pearl District into King William. And if we had had a rail plan that said, let's take from 1604 and 35 into downtown San Antonio, or 281 and 1604 into San Antonio, or IH-10 and 1604 into downtown San Antonio, if that had been the impetus for rail, I think it actually would have passed for a lot of folks where the voters and density of traffic congestion are. The other thing I would say is that we are also looking at some of the old methods of rail. The best method, in my humble opinion, for connecting Austin to San Antonio is actually the technology that Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, has created, which is the hyperlink. And Representative Barbara Gerben-Hawkins, the hyperlink relies on a royalty method rather than a condemnation method, meaning in Texas, folks, because of the oil industry, are used to having royalties for their land. So the hyperlink, which is a magnetic capsule, if you will, that goes 600 miles an hour, can take 12,000 people to between San Antonio and Austin, gets you at 600 miles an hour, gets you to Austin from San Antonio in 12 minutes. And he has an office. They have an office in the Rand building downtown. They're testing this technology at the University of Mississippi on a track. I think we have to skip, frankly, over the past technologies and move into the future. And I think those kinds of technologies will help get rail here in San Antonio if it's done where the congestion is.
My question is really simple and short and directed to Mr. Chris Steele. You had indicated earlier that everyone is not really a college student, prepared for college or should go to college. And I'm certainly in agreement with that, although I am an educator. But my question to you is there a recruit in the Sam Houston High School, which is basically one of our main high schools here in District 2 and on the east side of San Antonio? Are there recruits from your department in that particular school for the fire department?
No, there's not anybody in Sam Houston at this time. There has been conversation as far as starting what I mentioned, which was kind of an ROTC program, a Fire Explorer program in Sam Houston. That has not got off the ground yet, but there has been discussion about it. But what we do have in our recruitment department, in our recruitment, we have 90% of them are African Americans, and they are engaging folks at career fairs in those different areas and at St. Philip's College and different places like that. But I mentioned that we had that Fire Explorer program in Edison and in Brandeis, and so we do have to get the next one in a school that serves majority African American.
Well, my comment to you is that we do have students in Sam Houston who look like me, and so I sure would like to see you recruit in that venue, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Accountability.
I'm Pastor Dukes of Israelite Missionary Baptist Church, Executive Director of Project Assist. My concerns are development of the east side. I'm concerned about the development because the development is for the developers. It's not for the residents of the east side. The developers come in and take a little square piece of property and put 3 or 4 stories on it when they paid $35,000, and then that same property that was bought for $35,000 now costs $250,000. Then the next door neighbor, after his taxes goes up. I'm concerned about that. Not only am I concerned about that, I'm concerned about putting $350 million in a 5-block area. I think that is a waste of our money. When the rest of our question, the question is why are we allowing this to happen? I applaud this kind of effort. We need more of it. But my question mostly is to the developer. Why is this happening when our residents don't receive nothing?